Kai Bayless, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much, Kai, for coming out and doing this with me. I really appreciate that. I've only actually talked to you a couple of times, but I've never actually had the chance to tell you that you've kind of inspired me, and I've seen what you've been doing the past year or two, and it's been very motivational for me to see what you've gone through during the pandemic and where you're at now in life, between your career and your personal life, and just everything's been working for you. And it's very inspiring to actually see that now, and to see you being so successful in the real estate market. So I just want to make sure you know that up ahead. It's been a great thing. I've never told you that, but I just want to let you know now I'm very inspired by where you've come so far.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's true. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for asking me. And it's true, we've only met talked a handful of times. And I'm excited to kind of tell you what's been going on, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And first, with that too, what is up with this real estate market? You're right in the thick of it. Like, what's going on out here with the demand and prices? And these experts, they talk about it, and it's like we have no clue what's going on, especially where our area is in the Bay Area.
I have to be full disclosure that I'm practically new as an agent, just 1 year behind me. And as a new agent, I've actually done quite a bit of business, which is a little bit unusual. And when people ask me about the market, especially here in the Bay Area post-pandemic, we're always trained to say, well, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to come in the future. And I try to keep my perspective almost as a first grader or a kindergartner, really, and not try to get too much into the specifics of what I think is driving the market in terms of job rates, interest rates, or things of that nature. It's just so complicated. I think the pandemic did actually bring a different mindset of people wanting to own their own home with outdoor space, and that can't be denied. I think a lot of people were cooped up for months at a time in a small apartment or a place with no yard or no balcony, and they felt really confined. So I think that really drove some of the single family homes that are being sold. So that I can say for certainty. But when it comes to everything else, I just look at it very generally a little bit, and some of my colleagues would probably disagree that I keep things a little bit too simple.
Fair enough. But either way, you've been working nonstop, I'm guessing, 60, 80-hour weeks.
Yeah,
plus.
It's interesting. Being a realtor, you don't have any days off. Well, I haven't figured out how to have a day off yet. Whenever my phone is on, I could always be alerted by something or have to work. And I really actually work maybe 5 hours a day, but it seems it's every day. And then some days I work a lot more. And so I'm trying to get better with the calendar. And that's one of the things that I struggle with, really time blocking and making sure I have time to do all I need to do and not spread myself too thin.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot on your plate. And if you miss one thing, it can definitely set you back on just getting your agenda set. But with that too, why real estate? What was the kicker to get you there?
Well, it is the money part for sure. And that was something that I think attracts a lot of people into the industry, thinking because the home prices are so high that the ability to earn a big income is there. And it's true, it is, but it's very challenging to obtain to be new. But backtracking a bit, I used to be a property manager, and I wanted to get into real estate in the mid-2000s, and that was also a really hot market. And then I realized, as almost a minimum wage worker, how was I going to transition into that field? Because there's no guarantee of making any money for months, and it's so expensive to get into with all your fees and marketing and things of that nature. So I somehow got hired at a property management company just a few blocks from here, actually. And I became a landlord in my early 30s to about 500 units. And so that was my first kind of foray into real estate. And it was dealing with contracts, public relations, but I just wasn't cut out for it. So that lasted for only a few years. And I was in court way too much, saw way too many dead bodies.
Well, I guess that's part of property management in some cases here, but maybe that's unique to the city, I'd hope, and the environment that you worked in. But going back to that too, you were doing that for how long?
I was a property manager for about 7 years.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So doing that and managing all those buildings, it's like, how did you have time to really, you know, get outside of that? I'm sure your phone was blowing up all the time with tenants and whatnot.
Yeah, so I had a special phone number that only tenants had, and it would always be going off. Holidays, Thanksgiving, when I wanted to have a peace and quiet, they would be calling me that their oven didn't work. They never used it the whole year until they want to roast the turkey. And then I get the phone call. And property management, nothing is positive about it. It's all very negative. No one ever calls you to say what a good job you're doing. It's always, this is broken, my neighbor's too loud, I'm behind on the rent, I'm struggling. So it's a really kind of a sad business as well to see people struggle and try to help them, but you can see them losing their grip and losing their home that they're trying to provide for their family. So it was really emotional on a lot of levels too. I remember I was present for an eviction, and it was my very first one, and the police came and they opened the door, made sure it was clear, and the family was just outside with these little children. It was a really hot day, and the kids just wanted to go back inside one last time to get a toy. And so we let them in, and instead of grabbing what you think would be something really sentimental, it was something from a Happy Meal. It wasn't even anything crazy, and it was just, I don't know, it was really sad to see a family have nowhere to go with kids and then have to drive away in my car with my boss. It was really tough.
Yeah, that's it's been an unfortunate reality, and I'm sure you saw it pick. Well, actually, I would say it didn't pick up during the pandemic because everything was shut down. But to have a past where you have that kind of experience, it's I can definitely see why that wasn't something that you want to continue on in the future. But where you're at now, it's like just the idea that you get to list a property, you get to show it, you get to sort of design it or stage it is the right thing. Mm-hmm. And then seeing people come in there, different families and different people, obviously there's that competition with people trying to outbid each other. But when you actually see that family or that first time home buyer come in, and it's going to be their house for the next 20 or 30 years, what's that feeling like to know that you've been a part of that?
Yeah, that's really the best feeling when you can make the phone call to a buyer, for example, that the offer that you crafted, that you helped them and held their hand through and made them so uncomfortable with because they're spending obscene amounts of money. And well, I always kind of play a trick on them. You're very deadpan when you call them and you say, well, I got the call back, and then all of a sudden you can say, and you got it.
Ooh,
and it's just like being on TV on all those real estate shows. And that fact to know that you've changed someone's life and they're going to go there and start another chapter or build a family together, that's really special. And that is my favorite part, especially if it's somebody that I know really well that I've helped. It's even more so.
That is awesome, man, to know that you've made a difference in somebody's life. And it gives you that inspiration, that motivation that when you do it the next time, another family who is trying to expand or this is their first time home, it's just, I've never been in real estate, but to be in your shoes that way, that would just make my day and just make me want to go out and do it again. Mm-hmm. And for me, it would be forget about the money. The fact that I'm actually making a difference in somebody's life, it's just incredible. And especially in an area where everybody's trying to get more space because of just how things are now. And who knows if companies are going to let everybody go back to work like it was 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. To be able to have that and have you be a part of it, that's something that, I know that you probably lean on every day to know that this is the reason why I do it. The money's great and it's awesome. You got to pay the bills, but to have that motivation to make a difference in someone's life, that's incredible, man.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My mentor just tells me to keep on loving on people and to use this profession as a way to build people up. And you're absolutely right. And I do think about that all the time.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So when you were a kid, actually, did you grow up? You didn't grow up around here, right?
No, I came to the Bay Area in '97 for school. So that was quite a while ago. But I grew up in Northern California. And people always think that San Francisco is Northern California. It's kind of, to me, very central. But you can go 5 hours north and still be in California. So I grew up in a really small town called Weaverville. And not many people even have heard about that. But it's a little tiny gold mining Wild West town you'd see in old Western movies.
The name after some guy named Weber?
Yes.
Okay, that would make sense. So did you strike it rich out there?
No, all the gold is gone.
It's all gone? What's it like living in a small town, especially compared to this metropolitan area?
Yeah, me and several other of my classmates left after high school, and then many still stayed behind. And whenever I go up there to visit, I would say that the ones that have left have a really greater appreciation from coming from a really small, close-knit, remote community. And the ones that have stayed resent it because they just feel their life is monotonous and they weren't able to do anything because the opportunities there are very, very limited. They deal with tourism or government or forestry. But growing up there, it was a really special thing to actually be able to be out late at night without having your parents worry and ride your bike everywhere, be in the forest or be in the park, hang out with friends, and just be in a really safe place.
If I lived out there, I would have done the same exact thing. To get on your bicycle at 12 years old and just go who knows where in the woods, camping, or just jumping in the river. Is there a river over there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so like jumping in the river and just doing what kids are supposed to do at that age. To me, that would be fun. I wonder what kind of has seeped into the mindset there, because if everything is sort of the same there, do you think they're getting influenced by social media or people who make it and they're making money when they leave and it's, I wish we had that opportunity here?
I think so. I think that particular town is just, it suffers from a poor economy, first of all. And I think with social media as well, I don't think it really improves people's lives. I think it's actually, it can be a great thing, but I think for the most part, it creates a keeping up with the Joneses kind of situation where you see so much, or you perceive other people's lives as so much better. I suffer from that for sure in a lot of ways, but I think maybe my old classmates there are still thinking they're left in some podunk town and have no way to get out and are looking out.
That's one way to see it, though. But when you go back to your childhood, did you ever have that one experience that you wish, man, I wish kids could still do that nowadays?
Yeah, even I think back in Weaverville, times have changed overall, and it's not as safe as it used to be, even that really small town. And I have friends that have children here, and they're growing up so differently than when I grew up. So whenever I have children, which hopefully is soon, it's going to be a really big hurdle for me to think about what's going to be what I would consider a safe and, loving environment for my children to grow up in. And the Bay Area is really scary. I've had friends that were born and raised here. They turned out okay.
Yeah, we turned out okay.
One in particular from South San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like when I think about being a kid, and I grew up in the East Bay, so 30 miles or so away from here. And man, the things we used to do, like we used to think it was fun just to go, it was fun. We used to play street hockey. We'd get the nets out, we were on the rollerblades, and we'd be playing street hockey in the middle of the street. And of course, we would fall all the time and scuff up every joint that we have. But it was so fun being a kid and being able to actually do that now. And, just thinking about, that experience, like if I ever had children or people who have children now, to be able to let kids do that and just enjoy it and have fun without worrying about all the other stuff that's out there. And when I was a kid, the big thing was, everybody's afraid of kidnapping. That was like the thing on America's Most Wanted. And, they're all around here, and it's like it didn't really happen that much, and it really doesn't happen that much now. But it's always something that people play on, like I want to keep my kids safe. But with the new generation now, I see them a lot on the phones, happy to stay inside. Really, in my opinion, missing out on all the good times that we had as a kid.
Yeah, I agree. But when I was growing up, I'm older than you, I know that. We had Atari and then Nintendo.
Okay, 45's not old. Let's make sure we know that.
But at that time, all my parents were saying, please just go outside. Why are you staying inside playing these video games? So we were already hooked on something electronic way back then in the 80s and 90s. Now it's more, I was having breakfast yesterday and this family comes out of this minivan. I think 7 people came out. All of them had their own phone and they sat down at the table next to us and they didn't say a word. It was just all on their phone doing something. And that is like the biggest wasted opportunity to me. And I find that to be really, really sad.
I see that all the time. And sometimes it happens to people who are really close to me, and we have to knock on wood there and say, hey, do I have to text you? And you're sitting 2 feet away from me. Hi, how you doing? I've done that as a joke, and it's kind of funny. Oh, hey, yeah, we're having lunch. Can we have a conversation, just me and you?
I know. I always joke with my boyfriend. I said, so please recite the last 5 Instagram posts that you saw. Just tell me about them. And of course, can't remember any of them. It's just flipping through as fast as you can just to pass the time.
That's crazy. That's funny you mentioned the video games. What was the one video? My thing with you had a Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
What was it? Was it Ninja Turtles? Oh, Duck Hunt. Remember Duck Hunt?
Oh, that's going way back. That's the original system.
Yeah.
I think for me it was, I also had a desktop computer that was an Atari, and that was really big back then too. And I remember playing like Time Raiders and Pitfall. I don't know these, or King's Quest. That was kind of the original situation games.
Man.
Yeah, and then Myst happened when I was in high school.
Jeez. Remember, like when you would spend 30 hours, on one game, you'd think you'd spend forever on that.
Yeah.
Now it's like all these games. Once you used to beat a game, it was done. Now it's all online, and you can keep on going. We can add more levels to it. You can play against people from around the world now, and it just keeps on going like that. Like, wow. And do you see that people can make money playing video games now? It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, there's like tournaments for it. I have no idea. And things are way too complicated. I've never played a video game now for years.
To me, it's like
too complicated.
If you would have told me that back when I was a kid, hey, in 10 years, if you're really good at playing video games, you can make a lot of money. I would have just, yeah, right. Well, maybe I missed an opportunity there. But, it's funny that you talked about, growing up in Weaverville and just the memories that you had as a kid, and like they'll always stay with you. Mm-hmm. And as you plan for the future, when you have your own children, it's like, the things I got to think about now living in the Bay Area, living in a major metropolitan area. Maybe people live in New York or Miami, LA, another area like that where, there's just so many more things out there that you had to be aware of.
Yeah. I mean, even not just for safety, but so I had an old salon business as well, and I used to work on clients one-on-one. And this was after being a property manager and before being a realtor. And I had so many moms as clients. We'd be talking about their kids, and they'd be talking about having to find a school for their like elementary school age child. And the whole pathway to find a school, not only is it price, it's so expensive, but to get in, it's like almost college for little kids. And so that was such a foreign concept to me coming from a mountain community. It was K through 8. Everybody went to school for 8 years together and then went to high school a little bit further out of town. And we all grew up together. And here it's a different middle school, a junior high, a high school, and it's all over the city. And it's a lot.
It's definitely a lot. And then just the commuting that's going on here. It's a different beast. It's funny when you talk to people who aren't from here, they're visiting, and then they get price struck when they say, how much is that home there?
Yeah.
Like, because that same home, if I put it in Wichita, Kansas, is like $100,000.
Exactly.
And that's how much here. So besides the price struck that they get, it's just seeing how, we're very diverse in the Bay Area. So, I've learned a lot being here just from people from different cultures, different backgrounds about how the world works and, where they came from and how they view it. And it's such a great tool to help educate the new people and the new kids coming up about just different things that are out there, because you just expand upon your opportunities. But then when you raise your own kids here, you're very cognizant about, the traffic, and then how far do you have to walk, or do I want you to walk to school because I don't know what's out there. It was funny. One time I went to Japan, and we got on one of those, one of the trains that are always packed. Mm-hmm. And I'm standing there, and this little girl comes on. She's like 5 or 6 years old with her little backpack on. It's like 8 a.m. in the morning. And she just gets on the train normally. And then she gets off like 1 or 2 stops later, like she's going to school. And I'm like, I don't know anybody who would be comfortable with their 6-year-old daughter getting on a train anywhere in this country and going to school. I mean, if we saw that, people would be freaking out, calling the cops, telling the parents they're bad parents. But in that environment, it's like, no, that's just accepted. Yeah. It's like, what if we had an environment like that? Like if you could change everything to be able to say that your kids are growing up in an environment where you could let them walk out and I know they're going to be fine. Nothing to worry about. Like if you could actually do that, how would that make you feel?
That would be like a utopia almost, where you can basically have a community that you weren't afraid of anything bad happening. On the flip side, though, is that can also be incredibly boring to have a whole community being so. I mean, in Japan, of course, it's a cultural difference where everybody likes to fit in and not be a square peg in a round hole, so to speak. I have a few Japanese friends and have kind of learned about that a little bit. And when you talked about diversity here in the Bay Area, that's probably the biggest reason why so many people want to live here and not want to move away. But back to your question about having that feeling of knowing that your child would be safe to go outside and whatnot, that would be just a dream, but maybe a pipe dream at the same time. I think my mom may have experienced that when she was a little girl growing up in Germany, going to school down the street, and maybe with me as her son when I was walking to school. She probably felt comfortable, but I don't think she would let me do that today.
Yeah, exactly. Coming from a different country and then doing it here, it's like, things are, and I kind of wish there were ways that we could fix certain things that we see as issues in our country, our area, specifically where we're at. And it can be a challenge because you realize how many layers there are to all these different issues that we have here. Like even just walking down the street here and you see like 3 or 4 people who are homeless on the street. Mm-hmm. It's like you would think it would be so easy to just say, hey, we're going to put you in, we have a housing program for you over here. You should want to go there, right? Life's good. But then you actually talk to some people and it's, no, I'm actually very comfortable with being on the street. I like not having to worry about anything. I like putting a cup out there and having people give me money because it's easy.
Right.
Why would I want to go to that?
Well, I think probably for you, maybe you are in a position to actually talk with homeless people and with your job. I don't know any of my friends or colleagues that actually would feel comfortable talking to someone that's homeless because of the perception. I mean, mostly when you're walking down the street, do you even make eye contact with someone that's homeless? It's like you want to avoid that because it's uncomfortable, or you don't want to make eye contact and then they're going to ask you for help, perhaps. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people. They just don't want to acknowledge it. It's such a huge problem, and I've lived in the city since '97. It's always existed, but lately it's exploded into a whole other realm. And when I talk about it with my friends and we talk about how rich the Bay Area is, and I was thinking, well, you could maybe throw unlimited amounts of money to the problem, but would it fix it? Would things after time kind of revert back? And I think for some people, you'd have to maybe categorize it a bit different. Some people that have just recently lost their homes, maybe it could bounce back into shelters or into the workforce. But I think the ones that you see that are comfortable, it's just, I think homelessness is going to remain something in our society for sure. But when I bring up the topic of not wanting to make eye contact, it's a little bit embarrassing to admit that, because sometimes that's what I do too. You're walking down in Union Square, you just want to enjoy the experience of going into shops and not acknowledging someone who is basically at the lowest level you can be in life, whereas we have everything that we need, and it's pretty tough. And I actually helped somebody recently. I was walking our dog around our neighborhood, and this man on a bike approached me and asked me how old the dog was, and struck up a conversation. He seemed nice enough, and then he said, I need to ask you a question, point blank. I'm destitute. I'm really struggling. Can you help me with anything? And we were already in a dialogue, and I felt just really compelled to help him. We were right outside my front door, so I felt, well, now he knows where I live. So I did go up. I did give him some money, and then I also gave him a pair of shoes and some shirts because he was having a job interview. And I also asked for his phone number. It's pretty amazing that people now have cell phones. Everybody does. And he called me a few times, and I would meet up with him a little bit and keep track of him. But that was a big risk. And all my friends said that was really something maybe you should have thought twice about. You know, he could have done something, but I don't know. I think I kind of took a page from my mom's book a little bit. And when I was growing up as a kid, she tended to help anybody and everybody without thinking as well. She basically is the exact opposite of me. I'm kind of more reserved and shy, and she has no filter, and she will ask anybody anything and talk to anybody.
Yeah, I've been told about the no filter thing that, it tends to get me in trouble sometimes. But that's actually a really good thing. You took a chance on somebody who just talked to you about your dog, struck up a conversation, gave him shirts and shoes, and the fact that he actually called you back to say, hey, I'm doing better, or wherever he's at in life, you know, there's so much of that out there. There is a lot of people out there that really need the assistance, and they don't know how to ask for it. There are some people who will, you know, take and take and take and have no intention of improving their lives. That is an element and a fact of life that a lot of us have to deal with. We sometimes see it where we work, where we go to school at, where we live sometimes. It's, you know, you can kind of see that element there. But it does speak to the bigger issue of how we can try to reach out, and you can just tell when somebody actually is genuine and they really need the help, and something's right there that clicks, like this might be the one thing that changes a person's life, and you know, something that they'll never forget. There was actually a story of one of my coworkers once. He got called out somewhere, and there was a homeless lady who was in a car with her kids, and he started talking to her about what's going on in life, and she started saying, hey, you know, life's been tough. This is all we have here now. I'm trying to do this for my family, but I can't do anything. And my coworker felt very compassionate, inspired by that. He actually went to the bank and came back with $100 and said, take this, you know, go do what you got to do. And, you know, I wish you all the success in the world. And of course, she's very appreciative of that. And he just went on with his day, thought nothing of it. That was like 10 years ago. A few months ago, he gets this letter with a check inside for $100. And it was from the lady who he gave it to 10 years ago. At first, he didn't know who's this person. But as he read it, and she started telling him, hey, you remember me? We met at this parking lot over here, and you were so kind to me, and you gave me this. I've done so well for myself and my family, my kids especially, that now we're on a great path. And it was all because of that one gesture of kindness that you gave me 10 years ago, when 98% of the people probably would have said, you're bothering me. Don't, you know, that's your problem, not mine. And I just want to let you know that I've come so far, and I actually want to repay you the $100 that you gave me back then. So of course it was a very touching moment for him. And he has the check with him, and he keeps it like on a mantle somewhere. He's like, that's a reminder of like the good things that you can do for somebody that maybe the rest of the world is like, that's not my problem. That's not something I want to worry about.
Yeah, it's just so easy to keep on walking and not let it be a bother to you, for sure. And we don't know people's circumstance. I was just thinking when you were telling me about her, you know, at one time I was also homeless, but it was circumstances that I didn't want to reach out to my family. I think when people have a really solid family network, becoming homeless is pretty challenging. You have someone to fall back on for help. And I think a lot of homelessness people just don't have any network of family or community. And, you know, I was homeless back in 2000, right before 9/11. I remember it really clearly. And it was just getting mixed up with some wrong people, you know, going to nightclubs every night until 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. It's not a recipe for success.
I could see that.
Yeah. By any means. And life all of a sudden can get out of control. But in addition, becoming homeless here is so easy. A lot of people are simply one paycheck away from that. And I was thinking, even during the pandemic, I had to close my salon business down. And luckily, I was a employee of the corporation, so I was eligible for unemployment. But if I hadn't been, I would have had expenses to pay with absolutely no money coming in. And it would have been a really big struggle. And that was all before I did my first real estate transaction. So, but then again, I have a network of friends and family, so I probably would have been okay. But for a lot of people, that just wouldn't be the case. And it's just so easy to get into a whole lot of trouble.
That is crazy that, one paycheck, literally if something happens and your company shuts down, or like in the pandemic, everything has to stop for who knows when, that it just changes so many lives. And we look at that, and there are definitely people who were fortunate that they had careers or jobs where that didn't affect them. They were still doing what they were doing, working from home, or had jobs where they still had to continue working. In their case, for many of them, life continued on as normal, save for their home life or social life. But yeah, for so many people to be hit with that and figure out a way to try and get through that, and having the support network is such a great thing, to be able to rely on friends and family. And then unfortunately, there were some people who just didn't have that. Maybe their family's in Wisconsin and they're in Los Angeles and they just didn't have it. But it really does hit home to know that that's sometimes is the reality that we actually live in. It's a great thing to be able to work hard and obtain so much in life there too. But sometimes you got to think about, how can we help out those who just haven't started out from the who haven't had the same starting point in life at the race or whatnot. And I think when we talk about a lot of what's going on in the world, that's been something that's been a big topic of discussion. Is the rich seem to be getting richer, all the big corporations with there. And then what about the people who just don't have the opportunities? What do we do with that? Some people say, well, they got to work harder and they can get it too. And then some people say, well, we have to give them stuff to give them assistance. And it's...
Yeah. When people say they have to work harder, I have a real issue with that, because there are millions of people that work 100 times harder than I do and are struggling. And being in the food industry, a dishwasher or a housekeeper, that is back-breaking work. And you could work as hard as you can and still never get ahead in this country. And so it's not about working harder. And when you're talking about the income divide, it's really a tale of two economies. There is definitely a different economy that tends to evolve and one that tends to be stagnant. And I was reading somewhere or heard something that basically, if you redistributed all the money in the world and put it in the hands of those that don't have it, it would just be a matter of months or maybe a year for all the money to revert back to where it was. And that is the relationship people have with money. Either they're afraid of it or they don't respect it, and it just flies out of their hands. And it happened in my family. My grandfather had a sister that got a settlement through something. It was after World War II. And instead of buying a little house that they all could have lived in, they bought fur coats, expensive ink pens. They went on trips. And then later on in life, they were on welfare. And it was just the relationship with money. And I was afraid of it for a long time. As a kid, I was obsessed with Richie Rich comic books.
Oh, I remember those.
And funny enough, I even had a Donald Trump board game. It was so crazy. He was kind of a different figure in the 80s. He was on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, and it was more of a crazy figure or whatever. And but I think I had a really bad relationship with it. I thought I was good with money, but I actually spent it very, very quickly and frivolously, thinking there was always more to be had. And then you get tripped up.
Yeah.
So the pandemic has taught me a lot, and having a resurgence in my career has taught me a lot. And there's going to be things I'll do a lot differently.
That is so cool. I did not know Donald Trump had a board game.
He did. It was really stupid, but he did have one.
You still have it?
I do. I do. I should probably sell it on eBay or something, or take it to the Republican National Convention or something like that.
Somebody's going to pay a pretty penny for that to say, oh, wow, I don't know what they would do with it, but the fact that existed, that's interesting.
Yes.
We'll leave it at that. Going back to where you're at now and kind of circling back to the success that you've had in your current career in real estate and the inspiration that you get when you see people being able to get their first time homes and how great of a feeling it is. It's not just for you too. It's also because of what you're building in your own personal life. And you've been together with your boyfriend how long now?
A little over 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've seen you guys together a couple times, and you can just, tell that there's something very special about the way that you guys just, kind of complete each other.
Everybody has their own element of crazy to them. Everybody does. And you may think someone that's really calm, cool, and collected is always that way, and that's so not true. But I think his brand of crazy and my brand of crazy really kind of melds well together.
Really?
We have to be careful sometimes. It's interesting you bring him up because we both were in salon type jobs, and I had a facial and massage business that was going on for many years, and I had about 7 staff members. And I was getting into real estate, just realizing that I was hitting my ceiling financially and that the business was just never going to really expand the way I wanted it to. Having employees is tough, taxes, and then really my business started out as a family. All of us were super close, and if I did something that was, wrong, like not getting a check out in time or had someone work a little bit later, it was no big deal. We were all as a team. And once you get employees, everything changed. It was like I was always, had to be super careful. But anyway, that business closed. His salon, of course, closed down for many months during the pandemic as well. And on top of that, he developed an allergy to the chemicals that were being used. And so that combined, he just knew he had to do something else. And so real estate was something that, it was his idea, really, that I went back into it. He brought the seed home, planted it. I got my license again a few months later. And so now we're both working in the same industry again. And sometimes we have very conflicting points of view, like night and day points of view about how to do this type of business correctly.
Who's right?
I'm not going to say either one of us, because you can definitely do business in many ways and still get to the same destination. I chose to do my business a little bit different because it was more comfortable for me, and he's doing it the way he thinks he should, and he's wildly successful as well. He's already closed 3 deals, and he works 10 times harder than me. He is a hurricane. That's his nickname, actually.
That is now.
It is, yes.
So the next time I see him, you'll know what that...
Yeah, he's the hurricane.
Is he going to get mad at you for telling me that?
No, of course not.
That's actually, to see that you're both now in the same field of business, and you're both going about it different ways. And how I'm sure, there's always what's better, what's not, how you're building upon each other's experiences to say, how can we make the best thing? How can we do the right thing for our clients? What are you seeing? What am I seeing here? That's very, I think the old, when I was a kid, it was the used car salesman that seems very sneaky. And I did have an experience with that when I got my first car at 16. I went to this used car lot, and cliche, used car, very pushy, very, you need this, you're going to do whatever. I'll make you a great deal, getting you to make that sale. And I think that in real estate, it's because there's so many real estate agents out there. If I'm somebody that wants to buy a home or sell my home, it can be, a coin toss to know that I may not be able to find a real estate agent who has my best interest at heart, because that's the person I'm going to rely on to actually, decide where my future is. Do I live here? Do I move from here? Whatever it is. And to hear your experiences and what you've dealt with, to see that you've actually, you take so much pride in making people's lives better, and that's the forefront of it. Yes, you have to pay the bills, but the forefront of why you're doing it is because you want to make improvements in people's lives. And I know that your boyfriend does the same exact thing there too. I've seen how much he hustles to try and do the right thing for his clients, and it's hard to actually find that genuine sense of reality in a real estate agent. So the fact that I see you guys doing that out there, it's been very inspiring to actually see you guys come far where you're at.
Yeah, when I hear you talk about that and say those things, all you have to do is go to Google and type in realtors are, and all of the negative things are going to come up. It's going to come up that I actually have it printed out in my binder that I keep at my desk. And I look at it all the time, and it says realtors are thieves, they're overpaid, they're liars, so on and so forth. And it's nothing positive. And it does have that used car salesman type, of quality is what people associate realtors at. And I remember when I was telling my facial clients that I was going into real estate, first of all, they were pissed at me because I wasn't going to be doing their skin anymore. But they said, that just doesn't really suit you, Kai. You're way too nice or too calm. And they're just like hustlers and slimy. And I'm surprised that you would choose that. And so knowing that, I tried to make my business the exact opposite. So I try to make my business not about me. It's all about them. So when someone comes to an open house, I try to invite them in as if they're coming to my house on Thanksgiving, So I'm not dressed up in a suit. It's not about me. I don't want to dress better than them. So that's kind of how I run my business. Kind of opposite of what most realtors do.
No, you're right. It can be, I have to show that I'm successful by wearing the Tom Ford suit, by driving the Tesla with, all the fancy bells and whistles on it, so that people know, hey, this guy knows what he's doing because look at what he's got. Therefore, he's going to look out for my best interest. When obviously there are plenty of people in the industry that do that, and they're very successful because they are trying to look out for their best client's interest. But there is something to be said about someone that seems like you guys grew up together, we're from the same neighborhood, we have the same interest, you're not trying to overshadow me by, dressing too fancy or like, t-shirt, jeans, whatever. Like I feel more comfortable talking to you, and I could sense that, you're going to do everything that you can for me to help me and my family get into this next phase of our life.
Yeah, because I'm trying to help families. I'm not trying to help celebrities. So I'm not trying to help the clientele that we see on those TV shows. And I think maybe the fancy clothes are required for those clients. But I really want to work just in the market that is for, I don't want to say normal people. I still want to be in a market that is a high price point, but not to the point where it's that they don't have to move. They just want to because they can, and it's fun. I want to help people that need to move, that want to better their lives, and I want to help facilitate, a smooth transaction.
So honest question, do you ever binge watch those shows?
I do. Last night, in fact.
What was that one?
I think there was the premiere of $1 Million Listing New York. And it kind of showed them in the pandemic and how their businesses were kind of changing. Everything was on Zoom and they were struggling and all that kind of, and New York was shut down. And I watched those shows not to learn from them, but to think, would I ever buy a house from that person? I don't know. I watch Housewives too, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
I don't talk about Jerry Springer type shows, but
is that, it's, we were talking about that before we turned the microphone on, about how things are different now, and how when we were kids, or when I was a kid, the biggest entertainment thing was Jerry Springer. Mm-hmm. Everybody had to watch it because it was just something about seeing people fight on a TV show, and you knew it was all staged in the back of your mind, but you're just like, yeah, what's going on with that thing? And now all that is shifted to things on streaming services and YouTube now, and we've kind of gotten our fill that way. But yeah, that some of those shows are guilty pleasures, and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the wife likes to binge watch, and of course I have to peek in, like, what's this about? It's actually interesting. And I kind of know that some of those real estate shows, like, okay, that there's no way that is like what they're portraying on there. Forget, right. But some of those houses, like, what would I do with a big house with an elevator and 3 pools and, like, yeah,
I think for the most of us, that might be a little bit too much. I think that would have to be given to us carte blanche without any worries, because in reality, I mean, MC Hammer had a house like that. He went bankrupt real fast. You know, we don't think about what goes into the upkeep. It just looks nice. In fact, a lot of my buyers are buying properties that potentially they may have difficulty affording because of the property tax, so on and so forth. And try to educate everybody. But getting back to those mega mansions, I also would feel guilty living in a house of that size because of the carbon footprint, but that's just me being environmental.
That's actually a good thing. Those little things that most of us don't think about, the upkeep. If you have 2 pools, hey, someone's got to take care of them. You know, your electric bill is going to be this much. Oh, by the way, you need landscaping because it's very creative how your lawn's done. You're going to do it. You're going to hire someone to do it.
Yeah.
All those things add up, and we always forget about that. Like, oh, I just see the number on the sticker price. That's it, right? And then you got to educate your clients about HOA dues if necessary, property taxes in this state.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more that goes into it that you just think, oh, that's the price. And actually, it's not. So, for example, a home can be listed at 1.2 million, but that's not the price it's going to sell for. It's going to sell for 1.8. And I know that sounds like a huge difference, and it is. And I'm in contract for one right now at that price, and now those taxes will be assessed on that purchase price, and that's a pretty penny. And then not to mention closing costs that all deal with that for that loan. So it's a lot of money that people need to be a homeowner, and it's not the same as when I bought my house 12 years ago. There were actually first-time homebuyer programs that were available, and I have written to the mayor of Oakland, Libby Schaff, because I met her one time at an event, and I didn't know who she was. And I thought, why is this lady so into me? Because I'm just talking about how I bought my first house with an Oakland homebuyer program, you know? And I attribute a lot of my success or the ability to open a business and then become a real estate agent to that house, because it was such an affordable way to be a homeowner. And I have a fixed monthly cost that hasn't gone up since I bought it 12 years ago. And that house has allowed me to do a lot. And I just wish that there were more programs to help more people become homeowners. And I think we would see a big shift.
Okay, well, first of all, super jealous because you got it way back then when we're like, nah, that's probably too much now. And if we could see the future of where they're going now, like, ooh,
yeah,
maybe he knew something that I didn't.
You know, I really didn't. All I knew is that I was reading these books on real estate and investing, and it was just so complicated. And then I thought, I work for $20 an hour. How am I ever going to afford a house? I don't even have enough savings. And then I read another book about just always envisioning your dreams and pretending that they're already happening, and having that constant and just picturing it in your head, knowing that it's real. And all of a sudden, it actually happened. It kind of just fell into my lap. I can't even explain it.
I mean, yeah, like, if I could go back in time and do that, I would definitely, so many opportunities that I could have had that I said, well, if I would have known about it 15 years ago, and then who knows where I could be now.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to my life, we're actually very happy where we're at here in a small place because we don't have any children, and we're not looking to have any children just because of the nature of how our lives are going. It's very exciting to be able to, though, when you get your first home, to just know this is where you could probably start your family. The way that kind of our parents did when they bought their first home, it was, we'll be here 35 years, the kids will grow up here, then the grandkids will come here, and life's good. Some people, though, I do see that they view houses as commodities. It's very much right now, I'm going to flip it in 2 years, get 300. I'm going to do the same thing over there. And it can be good for them. It can be unfortunate for the new first-time home buyers, but it's kind of one of the things that we do have to work with everything going on now. But all the success that you've had and you can continue to have now, and being able to have you guys are building you're building a life together, you and your partner, and it's so inspiring to be able to see that happen with so many people, because unfortunately sometimes there's people who just don't get the opportunities, but to be able to work together and complete each other and help each other out, I think that's personally one of the things that I've seen missing with a lot of couples is that there's that miscommunication where we're not working together to make our lives better together. It's kind of, this is my way, that's your way, and then together we'll build this, but we're kind of forgetting about each other. So it's great to see that you guys have come so far. And what is this? We're in San Francisco now, where we're in the month of June. It's Pride Month here. What does this month mean to you?
Yeah, so Pride Month for me was, when I was younger, was all about how drunk I could get on Saturday and then see the parade on Sunday if I could wake up. And it was, but as a whole month in general, and knowing the history about Stonewall in New York City, and just knowing the history of so many marginalized groups, and how the Pride movement has actually kind of is joining forces with a lot of other marginalized groups as well. And for me, it's just really special. I think that nobody celebrates Pride Month like San Francisco. And when I really take a moment and think about it, and think about in the 70s with Harvey Milk and whatnot, and just the absolute struggle that they had in that time period. And to know that I can live my life today completely like anybody else can. It's another reason why we live here. When I look at those expensive homes and think what that would translate to in another beautiful state like Tennessee or Ohio, would it be a life that I could live there comfortably? And it probably wouldn't, and I used to kid my clients. I said, well, you're straight. You can live anywhere you want to without any problems, I can't. And then I look at it also at different ethnicities, and back in time periods, they couldn't live anywhere either. They had to live in certain areas where they were more safe. And so I look at that, and there's a long way to go, and I'm just really grateful for being in the Bay Area and the time that we're in.
I have a little technical difficulties with the lights. I'm going to get them in a second here. But what has been like a misconception that you think that used to be about what people thought about Pride Month and how it's improved and how San Francisco is so much, it's accepting?
It is accepting. So on Facebook, for example, a lot of companies will change their logos and add like a rainbow background or a rainbow flag. And then I almost always dread to read the comments that follow underneath. And so many people will write, oh, when is it going to be, straight Pride Month? Or thank you for shoving your lifestyle down our faces, And they said, oh, I don't mind people's lifestyle, just don't advertise it and align it with your company. And so when I read that, it just means that there's still so much more to be done, but I think it just takes time. It just takes time for more exposure, for people finally to see that people live normally and there's really not any difference. A misconception about Pride, though, is that it's all one big party. And that was my misconception too, even though being in part of that community was a part just to celebrate and get drunk. But I think it really should be, the misconception is that not many of us reflect on the true meaning. And I think I'm trying to change that, and I'm trying to really reflect on really what this month means. Just like Black History Month, Asian Heritage Month, all of those time periods that we should focus on it all the time, but particularly during that time, we could be a bit more mindful and look at the history of it.
That's very insightful. And it's funny how you mentioned when you were 20 and your perception of it was just it's a big old party and life's good and how drunk can I get? Mm-hmm. Do you see that still with a lot of the younger generations?
It's difficult for me to say because the whole community has changed. The bar situation, nightclubs have actually diminished recently, not just because of the pandemic. And more people are now doing other things, or it's not quite the same. But I do feel that the younger people will always, by default, kind of look at it more as an excuse to party, and that's fine because that's where their heads are, and that's totally cool. And I think it comes with time for them to look back a little bit as they calm down, maybe. But I do see progress. We talked about my hometown, Weaverville, earlier, and each summer for the 4th of July, there's a huge parade. Well, it's 10 minutes long, but it's pretty big for them. And when I was a kid, I was in the parade with my dog, or my mom knew I wanted to be in the parade so bad, so she approached Pat Hicks, who she's passed away now, but she was like the unofficial mayor of Weaverville, and she was also the Girl Scout den mother. And my mom approached her and asked if I could join the troop in the parade. So they all dressed up as clowns, and I was the clown, the little boy clown behind. Anyway, but the parade is a really big ordeal. The whole town is very patriotic. They have destruction derbies, marathons, fireworks, all kinds of stuff going on. And I went home a few years ago, and I learned that there was going to be a pride float in the parade, and I got extremely nervous. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, are they going to get any applause when they go by, or are they going to get heckled or booed? And because the float directly in front of them was from kind of a weird organization that's just known for drinking beer, target shooting, and not really doing much of anything. So I was thinking, how is this all going to play out? But the reaction was incredible. It was very supportive, and I was really surprised. So I think that there is a lot of progress that we don't get to see because it's coming from these smaller communities, and sometimes we don't give them enough credit.
That's really good. That to see the change, the evolution, especially in your lifetime where you saw it at 20 and then where you see it now at the very young age of early 40s.
Yeah.
I'm going to say you are.
Mid 40s.
There we go. That, it's been so much more accepted by so many different people in the world that, we have to accept, or we need to accept how everybody is just different from our countries, from how we grow up, who we choose to be in relationship with, whatever, that it's actually necessary for us to actually, foster change with so many other things here. And, it's funny with, did you see what happened in New York with their parade there? What they said that they didn't want? They said they need to be excluded. Well, kind of going to a more bigger point here is that they told the NYPD, we don't want you in our parade. You can't be a part of it. Not only that, we're going to hire private security because we don't want you. We think you're going to intimidate people who may be in the parade, which, speaking more independent about this, it's if we're trying to spread inclusion amongst so many different things, how is exclusion trying to improve the situation? So they, there's some news outlets that interviewed some police officers who were part of the community. They're like, we've been with you the whole time. Why are you kicking us out now? And, I know that there was some similar that they did in this city here. It wasn't to the same extreme, but, I don't know if that comes from fear that if we let, people who wear a badge or firefighters be in our parade, that it somehow is going to intimidate anybody. Because I think it sends the wrong message that we're actually not inclusive, that we're kicking people out under the guise of we're intimidated by them. It's like,
right.
Has that, did you think about that or see how it was perceived?
Yeah, now that you mention it, I had heard about that. And I think it was with all of the events going on with the police brutality and the deaths that have happened, wanting to make sure that would be completely separate, that this event can go on without any intervention or protection. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that is excluding. There are a lot of LGBT people in the police force itself. And I don't really know how to comment on it too much, but I understand your point that it is excluding, and I can see their point that in light of what's happened, is it too sensitive to combine the two? I feel that we need the police because whenever we have millions of people in a small area, things are going to happen, and we need to have first responders there for our own protection. And
it's as I see more and more of the movements of everything that has been happening in the last 10, 15 years, whatever, it's, when sometimes it gets so one-sided, we kind of drown out the other side. And it's like the other side has a point that we need to be more inclusive of, because if one person has one point of view and says, that's it, that's the way the world is, and the other person has the exact opposite point of view and says, that's it, that's the way the world is, all we're going to get is this. Like, we're never going to actually figure out what the benefits are to each. How do we come together to find a real solution? I think that's the same thing for everything from homelessness, like we had talked about before, to the benefit or the equality of outcome for everybody to have the opportunity to make it in this country, or any country for that matter, is that, or taxes, if you're in the government, and how much taxes are too high or too low. It's like we need to see both sides of it so we can actually figure out what the middle ground is. And the middle ground, unfortunately, is going to take everybody to have to work for it, which I think scares some people. It's, well, can I just sign a check and then not have to worry about it? It's, you're going to have to be a part of the solution, even if it doesn't affect you, which is something that's, just something that I've seen overall with things that we need to work on in society. But, again, it's been a great learning experience to actually see how our country and our, society has just progressed so much in the positive direction over the last 15 years, 20 years beyond that it's been a great thing. So I think at the end of the day, we're moving towards the right direction with so many different things. It's just taking us longer sometimes to actually get there. But I gotta tell you, Kai, this was actually very informative that we had here. I learned a lot about you that I never knew about, that, where you grew up in a small town and where you came here. Like, if you were to tell somebody who was like maybe 17 years old in a similar environment where they feel like, I'm in this little bubble, I can't, for whatever reason, feel like I can get out. Everybody's getting ahead of me. I look at social media and this person's got 2 million followers and whatever. Like, how would you tell somebody that young that there is an opportunity for you?
Someone had asked me this just pretty recently, and I would advise anybody at that age to live your life with blinders on and not to pay attention to anybody else, and not to compare what you're doing to somebody else. There's always going to be somebody that's way more successful than you, better looking, stronger, always. But it's always best just to concentrate on what you can do and not just to filter out the noise, because there's way too much noise that you can get distracted, and it can create depression, and you can say you're never going to be good enough. And that's so not the case. You can be mediocre at something and still be plenty good at it,
That's so true. It definitely is. Well, Kai, if there's anybody listening to this right now that's gotten a lot from our conversation, or nothing, some people don't take anything away from it, and how can they reach out to you? And what group are you a part of for your real estate venture?
Yeah, I'm with Compass Realty, based in the Oakland office, and I'm at kai.bayless@compass.com. And yeah, available anytime.
Excellent. So hopefully someone can reach out to you. And I think by just talking about, the real world and where we all came from, you definitely put a face to real estate agents as a whole, that there may be an element that's trying to make money and that's it. But that most of us in your industry, we're actually really trying to do the right thing for everybody. And we're going to work really hard to make sure you get that dream home as best as we can. It's a competitive market, but that we actually are looking out for your best interest, and we're going to do everything that we can for you. Yeah. So inspirational. So Kai Bayless, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. You continue to inspire me, even though we don't talk that much. So I'm so glad to have you on here.
My pleasure, Mike. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.